Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Donut Hole, your place where a couple of guys sit around and pontificate about things. My name is Paul,
And I'm Jason.
and we're coming at you from our studios here in Nashville. It is November 3rd, 2019. And yeah, so here we are. I guess let's go ahead and just dive into the stuff for today.
Sure.
Obviously, over the last couple days, Beto O'Rourke has dropped out of the presidential race. So I guess your AR-15s and AK-47s are safe, at least from that douche canoe.
Yeah. Kind of became a one-issue candidate there for a while, just going around harping on gun control, and didn't really help him out in the polls.
Which is good.
Yeah, he ran out of money and he was done.
Yep. Which is a shame because that means the Boogaloo boys are, not going to run out of ammo.
Yeah, and I can already see the narrative by the front runners such as Elizabeth Warren. You know, people ask them about gun control, they'll say, "Oh, we're for it, but we need to focus on other things." So it's going to take a back seat for the moment.
Okay, I was joking about the being pro Boogaloo thing. I mean, not advocating for violence or anything. I need to get that out there. So if it was a joke. It was a joke. Internet meme kind of thing here, guys. Okay, it's a joke. Don't need to get red flagged or anything.
Yeah. YouTube algorithm there.
Yeah. So there's that. But speaking of people like Elizabeth Warren, obviously she's coming up in the polls, kind of neck and neck with Biden. Bernie Sanders is slipping in the primary process with the DNC. She's unveiled her new health care for everybody plan,
Yep.
which is going to cost billions, if not trillions of dollars.
The last figure I saw was 52 trillion over 10 years.
Yeah, that's nearly the entire budget, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like everything that's currently being spent. So
Yeah.
let's double our tax rates. That sounds fun. And then, of course, moreover, I think you brought it up that it's going to cost about $2 million jobs in the private sector with the way insurance is currently structured. So
Yes.
all those people are going to end up losing their jobs because it's going to go to a single payer system.
Right. And like you had mentioned, probably a few of those would end up working for the government. However, though, that's still a lot of jobs to disappear basically overnight.
Yeah. And even Joe Biden was calling her out, saying, "Look, your plan's crap. It ain't going to work."
Yeah, Joe Biden, I think, was the only one who actually said, no, we still want private insurance. Because what about the people who, like myself, work for a company that provides them health insurance? And the people who are happy with that already, and the cost, because I have a decent health plan for a decent cost, and if I were to lose mine, I'd end up paying more in taxes than I would for my current health care plan.
Yeah. So there is that. I mean, there's no joke that healthcare is broken in the United States. There's a lot of different avenues to fix it, whether it's full-on privatization or a hybrid system. But full-on government control in the United States within the healthcare industry, I think, is more or less a bad idea. And it's a bad idea because while there are a few things the government does well here, there's a lot more things that the government does really badly.
Yeah.
There are some places in the world where I've seen government healthcare run well because they do it well. And there's other places that run it like crap. And, in the United States, unfortunately, it'd probably be one of the things that are run like crap, like the DMV, which is slowly getting better, but still not how I want my healthcare.
Well, and people are still continuing to ignore the fact that, Medicare that we do have for retired folks is virtually unlimited. That would change overnight as well. It would have to change.
Yeah.
Because you can't give the entire population unlimited health care like you do the retired folks now. So, I would think that the older demographic would be against this because they have unlimited health care and they would essentially lose it.
Yeah, they would. And then, of course, anybody that would really need it, they're going to be the ones that loses it. Or the ones that lose it. Your average, Tom, Dick, and Harry that goes in for a sniffle, hey, that's great for that.
Yeah.
It's great for the sniffles. It's probably okay for a car accident, unless it's extremely severe. It's probably all right for minor surgeries, broken arm. Hey, yay, but, government healthcare is fantastic for that. It's the strange case of leukemia that you get screwed. Or you get cancer, you get screwed. Or, like my kids, when they were born, extreme premature. It's too much work, forget it.
Right, they're going to go based on the stats. And they're going to say, well, our stats show that with your type of illness and blah, 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 that the treatment is only 20% effective. Now, you and I would say, well, give me the treatment anyway. We're going to hope that the 20% saves us. Well, in a lot of government-run healthcare systems, such as England's, they'll just say no. They'll say 20% is not worth trying. It's going to cost us too much money.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Americans are ignorant to that reality. Whereas with private insurance, they may fight paying it, but they will eventually pay it, and you will get your treatment.
Yeah. So there is that. So who knows? It'll get interesting.
Well, and we're not in the business in America of denying treatment to people. As much as you hear this narrative used by the Democrats, anybody who has major illnesses in this country get treatment of some sort, even if they do not have insurance, even if they cannot pay. You go to the emergency room with a broken arm. This actually drives up hospital costs a lot. A lot of illegal aliens use this. They're going to treat you. They're not going to send you out the door with the broken arm.
Yeah.
So in a sense, there is that emergency care already in place. Now I say emergency care because obviously the preventative and the, disease maintenance and things like that won't be provided. But as far as emergency care, that's somewhat already in place.
Yeah, there are some countries in the world. I know the Philippines, for example, if you have to go to the hospital, they're pretty much expecting cash up front.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, will be like, oh, I can't go to the doctor because, I don't have any money. Or I can't even go to the hospital, even though I've got this life-threatening illness because, I can't get treated necessarily until I show proof of funds or something like that.
Right.
Which is kind of messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't do that here for emergency cases. Now, non-emergency cases, yes, they will be denied care. But any type of emergency case in America, you are going to get treated at the hospital. I even believe that's a law that they have to do that. Now, unfortunately, that does drive up the costs for the rest of us because then the hospital just simply charges more to everybody else. Therefore, somebody's paying.
Well, that said, in the healthcare industry in the United States, I mean, I understand driving up cost a little bit to cover that, but that would be what, a 20% increase overall on everybody else's bill to cover the schmucks that use the healthcare that way. But I don't see the excuse of $85 for an aspirin kind of deal that some hospitals will do.
Right.
That's where it becomes a real big issue, and ultimately, what I think it's come down to is, like I said, there's multiple avenues, and one of them is the fact that in the United States we become so disassociated from the care we receive. So everybody has an insurance, and nobody treats insurance for what really insurance should be. Insurance should be the catastrophic illness industry, the car,
Right.
So you get like cancer, you get a car accident, you get something crazy. It covers that. Not, oh, I got the sniffles. Oh, I'm going to get a deduction on my insurance. That's not how it should be done, because that's the way it's
Right.
being utilized in the United States as a primary healthcare payment system, and it shouldn't be. It should be like, oh, I have to go to the doctor. Okay, here's $75, $50, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's covered. And the fact that insurance companies, I know, will argue the price with doctors and healthcare providers then massively jack the price up. So it'd say, oh, well, here's the real bill. We'll settle for half of it, which is going to be 2 times what we normally would ideally hope to get.
Right.
So a lot of those kind of games get into place. And if you don't have insurance, like myself, you get doubly screwed because, okay, I don't have any health insurance to begin with. And, oh, they're going to try charging me the initial rates.
Right.
That they're going to try to charge the insurance company. It's like, screw you. I know the game. But, try arguing that.
And that is a cultural issue, and you see it in certain European countries as well, is when you get socialized healthcare, people all of a sudden start going to the doctor for every little tiny thing.
Yeah.
When it becomes free, maybe something as simple as a sprained ankle, where in the past, if they had to pay $50 or something, they wouldn't go. They just, stay off of it, elevate it, put some ice. Most sane people would do. Well, you get in a situation where healthcare is completely free to everyone, the doctor's offices are going to be packed with people with sprained ankles. And I agree with Barack Obama when he was talking about Obamacare. He had a statement that was controversial at the time and said, all you people can basically go out and buy the brand new cell phone for $500, which now they're up to $1,000.
Yeah.
This was a little while back,
Back in the day.
I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but you can't spend on your health care. And I think what he was alluding to was basically what you're saying. Like if you have the sniffles, you have the flu, You need an antibiotic. Well, you just pay out of pocket. Cost you maybe $100. You move on. Because people in America will surely, even people of lower middle income, they'll go out to the restaurant and spend $100 with their family, no problem. Never think twice about it. I see young people, especially in my industry, they're going out constantly to the nightclubs, to the movies, to this and that. $50, $100 here, no problem. They don't bat an eye. They have to pay $100 because they got the flu. All of a sudden, it's a human rights issue. So that is a cultural thing that also could be fixed in America. And like you said, maybe the catastrophic is what we as a society should chip in to pay for the guy who got some weird form of leukemia. But if you're messing around on your motorbike and you break your arm, sorry, buddy, you got to pony up $200.
And I think $200 if you break your arm is reasonable enough. Now $2,500, that's kind of pushing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's unfortunately where we're at with a lot of healthcare in the United States. You go to the hospital, it's probably gonna be $2,500 for them to reset your arm. It's like that's a bit much.
That's why you have some of these clinics, and unfortunately, it's mostly in affluent areas now.
Yeah.
That you'll see this menu style pricing.
Grace Point Healthcare comes to mind.
Yeah,
because I always hear about their plug on the radio for the menu style
and
price
it's great.
in healthcare.
It's great because you just go in there and they have a board that says antibiotic this cost, prescription for this cost, and they let you know what it is ahead of time. We'll put a cast on your arm. It's $200, $300. You pay cash or credit card, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't even believe they accept insurance.
They do not accept insurance, but they say they will help you with filing.
Yeah, you can file your own.
Yeah,
right.
they'll be like,
they'll
here's
give
the
you the
form.
paperwork.
Yeah, you fill this out. This is what our costs are. This is what you will send to them, and you might get reimbursed.
Right.
But they don't screw around with insurance themselves. They're like, yeah, we're not touching that crap. It's just, this is the cost.
Yeah.
Which, hey, good for them. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, like you said, it's a small selective group of clinics and stuff that do this in, like you said, affluent areas. So that's kind of a big pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a strange thing in American culture that people just think spending $100 because you got the flu is too much money, and that should be free. I've never understood that, and like you said, if everybody actually did pay out of pocket for that stuff, the cost would come down.
Well, I think also we need to get to a point where I think going to the doctor for the flu in general is kind of fucking stupid.
Yeah.
If anything, it should be you call the doctor up and say, hey, dude, I've got the flu. Write me up a prescription for Tamiflu so I can pick it up.
And telemedicine is starting to catch on as well too, and I think that's important to bring costs down. Is before I had this current job, the last insurance I had through Obamacare had that, and now I will say that it was on some of their proprietary messaging system, so it was more like an email even than a text, and it took a long time to get a response. Sometimes it took a day or two to work through the process. But if you just needed some sort of cough suppressant or, as long as it was not narcotic, it was generally nurse practitioners that were talking to you. They wouldn't prescribe you any type of, generally antibiotics or narcotics. They wanted you to actually see a doctor to confirm if you had an infection. But if it was minor stuff, they'd talk you through it. I went and got some cough medicine from it one time. I got Tamiflu from it another time. So if it's not any kind of controlled substance, and they're restricting the antibiotics now because of the resistant bacterium. But other than that, it didn't cost you anything. They didn't charge you for a doctor's visit. You're just basically texting with a nurse and you get what you need.
So I think, there's a lot of different options and avenues to bring healthcare costs generally down. And honestly, I think that's ultimately what the American population wants. They're sick and tired of paying $2,500 for a broken arm. $200, that's a lot more reasonable. They can do that. And I think that's ultimately what we need to get to as a society. And like I said, insurance needs to be used for what you would know, like in your car insurance, right? You get a flat tire or, something stupid like that. You're not going to use your insurance to cover the flat tire. You're just going to buy a new tire. Now, somebody smashes your car in, you call your insurance company. You get an actual car accident, the bumper's over there. That's when you call your insurance company. And that's the same thing. It should be the same thing for the medical industry as well.
I actually just had an example of that with a friend of mine who got in a fender bender in a high school parking lot with a high school kid. He was picking up his son. And, the high school kid called his dad, and his dad talked to my friend and said, hey, it was very minor, just a scratch. And, he went ahead and got the police report and said, let's just handle this without the insurance. He didn't want his son's insurance rates to go up. My friend was amiable to it. And, everything's going to work out there. And it's a similar type situation. It's like, why get the insurance involved over a small scrape, whether it be on your car or on your knee?
Exactly. And that's really, I think, where it should be. We need to start using insurance for what insurance is for, to insure you from catastrophe.
Right. And we don't want to get into a situation as a society where you have an overwhelming majority of people who are not using the insurance paying for people who are constantly using it. Because that's an inequality in and of itself, and that's what the leftists don't like to think of. That's also unequal.
Well, it depends on what you mean by that. Because I mean, if you're utilizing the insurance, because honestly, I think it should be a few people using the insurance and possibly using it a lot, and almost everybody not using it and still paying into it. But I think premiums should be like $25 a month, and it should be the people that are using it. Well, he's got stage 4 cancer. Obviously
that,
they're going to need to use the crap out
that
of it.
is something as a society that's for the good of society
Yeah.
that we need to take care of.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the constant, every time you have a scrape, cold, what we were talking about earlier, and I've actually seen it. I've seen it with people I've known who are veterans, and they can go to the VA, and now they don't get, it's very delayed care there. But I've seen it a lot with, I hate to say it, but the poor folks that used to be on TennCare when we had that in the past, they just go to the doctor for every little thing constantly. And what you don't want to get into a situation there is where you're encouraging a certain class of people who perhaps they were deemed poor enough to not have to pay for the scrape on their knee or what have you, where they're utilizing all the money of everybody else. It should be going to the stage 4 cancer and the leukemia guy and the strange brain disease and the children that are born with defects. That's where it should be going.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be going to, somebody who every time they get the sniffles or they cut their hand, they go to the doctor.
Well, obviously, I mean, I think we just need to get to a point where doctors won't file the insurance for you in that regard. Where it's like, oh no, this is just some minor crap. You don't get to file insurance. Go fuck yourself. Pay us. Now, if it's something obviously more major, the larger the bill goes, either they'll give you the forms to file it or they'll file it for you.
Yeah.
But it should be again reserved for the more severe. That's what insurance should be for.
And we already saw that happen with Obamacare, was the increases in claims, which is why it was even more. The insurance rates every year went up, every year. And by a lot, too. I know. I was on Obamacare for the last 5 years. The care went down and the cost went up because the people who got it for free would just utilize it unlimited. And then people like me who are actually having to pay for it, who wanted to use it sparingly when it was necessary, ended up footing the bill for it, and it just kind of collapsed under its own weight.
Not only that, but then your deductible was like insane too.
Oh yeah, I had like a $7,500. Well, they called it a max out of pocket, but essentially I got very little benefit until I reached that max out of pocket, which was essentially a deductible. They're just renaming things.
Yeah. Well, that's something the left's good at. They rebrand things all the time.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I knew people that made more money than I did that got gold. And if for those of you who don't know, it's silver, bronze, gold. There are all these ratings, platinum, I guess, of the different levels of insurance. But I knew people that made more money than I did that had gold insurance for them and their children for free or for very little a month, maybe $50 to $70, simply because they had 2 or 3 children. And because the children were allowed to stay on the insurance till they were 26, these were adult children living outside of the home. As long as they said they lived inside the home, I imagine. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but you have 2 dependents. Well, we'll give you the high-end insurance for a very low cost. So, we just don't want to get into those situations again.
Well, I mean, they did live at home. They just stayed in the dorms when college was in session.
Right. And then the parents who are making more money than me over here, they can claim they have 2 dependents, even though the dependents may be 25 years old.
Yeah, well,
So that's these are just the things that just because I was on Obamacare so long, I saw how this starts to happen.
Yeah.
And it's because of an American mentality, I think, of you give the benefits to the people who don't have any money, but then the people with a little bit of money pay for all of it. The European mentality is a little bit more like, well, everybody gets the benefits, not just the people paying for it, but everybody. It's everyone. Whereas in America, we say, oh, the people who pay for it don't get anything, and the people who don't pay for it get everything.
Well, it was the same way in Taiwan. It was a universal system, but everybody pays into it. Everybody gets out of it. That's what it is. So it worked out pretty well. I mean, by and large, for most things, it was pretty good. There were a few times it was a big pain in the ass. Like, you want to go see a specialist, you make an appointment, and you might still be sitting there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Which is a royal pain in the ass, but
it
is what it is.
Right.
You wait for your number.
Yeah.
Number 347. Shit. I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what it is we need to provide, if we're going to use a social program, we need to provide everyone across the board Enough with the special interest groups. Enough with the let's separate people by classes. If it's something to benefit society, it should benefit all of society, not just one segment
Exactly.
of society.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's get off of this. We're kind of beating a dead horse here, I think.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and let's move into Trump impeachment. So obviously they're still beating this dead horse. I think they're going to start. They're trying to push it now to get at least out onto the main floor of the House. There's been talks of that. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think they're dragging the impeachment proceedings out because nothing's going to get really done before Christmas, or
Yeah.
really the first of the year. Once the first of the year happens, we're now in full swing election cycle. I think the Democrat primaries January or February.
I believe so,
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
So by that point, they'll have it out. At that point, they'll be talking about impeachment full swing in the House. That's what they're using it for. It's going to be a distractive tactic for the election itself to try to denigrate one of the opposition candidate during the actual election. I've said it before. That's exactly what it is. That's the game plan. That's why they're fiddle farting around with it.
Well, it's gotten to where nobody really sees either side as a positive right now. So what they're doing is they're saying if we can keep the attention on Trump, then it'll be bad for Trump, which is true. The polls tend to show that.
Yeah.
And then, but when the attention swings to the Democrats, it's not good for them. So if the news cycle is talking about Trump, 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 it's going to damage him.
Yeah.
Whereas if the news cycle is talking about the Democrat nominees and their debates, it damages them. So whoever's being talked about is going to feel the negative effects.
And especially when it's talking about Trump, 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 impeachment, 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 it looks negative. Even more so negative than when they're just talking about the Democrats and their policies, which are crap, but
Yeah.
You know, it is what
However,
it
it can backfire on them.
it could. Hopefully
Simply,
it does.
mostly because of the past. See, they overplayed their hand with the Mueller probe.
Yeah.
And a lot of Americans, according to the polls, were very sick of the Mueller probe. They're like, let's see what evidence there is. If there is any, let's get it out in the open. Let's get this thing done. If there is no evidence, let's shut it down. We're done with this. And not but a few months later, we got this. So I think there will be a certain amount of fatigue with the American voter, and that they're going to be like, okay, enough of this.
I think the fatigue goes both ways, though. So you'll have the fatigue of people that are just so sick and tired of the opposition doing it, and they're going to kind of rally behind Trump. And you'll also have the people that are kind of like, I don't know, they're constantly hounding on this with Trump, that with Trump. Let's just get him out of there, so we don't have to hear this crap anymore. So there's that side of it too. So it's you're going to have kind of the rally behind the president and just kind of apathy. Let's distance ourselves from it. So you're going to have both, I think.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, so far, from what I've heard, the Democrats donors are looking for other candidates, and Hillary's talking about running. It's just a shit show all the way around.
Yeah.
We'll bleep that out for YouTube.
No, fuck it at this point. We're not monetized. Nobody's watching anyways. We're just spouting it into the wind.
Right.
At least I hope. Well, hopefully somebody's watching, but
One or
lately,
two maybe.
Yeah, it's been pretty sparse.
But yeah, it's just a shit show, and
Yeah, it's a shit show. We don't have to worry about saying anything or whatever we want to say because, like I said, we're not monetized at this
Right.
point anyway. YouTube doesn't give a fuck. They're probably, burying our videos anyway.
No, yeah, they got an algorithm, so
Yeah, Yeah, they I'm sure they got files on it each about this thick, so they're like, yeah, screw these guys. Let's bury them.
yeah.
So, anyway, let's see what else. Well, I guess we can talk about al-Baghdadi.
Yeah.
Religious hermit in desert gets destroyed by evil imperialistic overlords.
Yeah.
Jedi Master dies.
Oh, and what kills me about these headlines is that they were actually changed. The original headlines, I can't remember exactly what they were, but very simple, terrorist leader, whatever, taken out. And then my favorite was the austere religious scholar. Could you imagine them saying this about Osama bin Laden when Obama took him out?
Actually, yeah.
But they didn't because it was Obama. See,
Yeah,
and that's the difference. Is and this is where the United States media is really failing all of us. Is that when it's their preferred candidate doing something, the headline reads a lot different when it's somebody they dislike. even though the facts of the operation are pretty similar.
Well, I've even seen it where it's like a newspaper article, and if it's a newspaper that's owned by like the same parent company, they'll release different headlines in different regions. It's like,
Yes.
oh, this is the Midwest. We're going to do kind of a more pro-Republican sounding headline. Oh, it's in New York. Let's denigrate,
Yeah.
the president
Yeah.
here.
But
Which is hilarious.
using the headlines about the leader of ISIS dying to damage Trump is to me, that's a bit unpatriotic and really just I don't know. It's I would almost say immoral. I mean, this is something as Americans we should all be united in saying good. Just like when Osama bin Laden was taken out, we should all say good. Not it shouldn't be a political issue here. It's not a good thing for the American people to make this into a political issue.
Although I do have to kind of dive a little down the conspiracy hole. With bin Laden, we're going to bury him at sea. And they did the same thing with this Joker. And they're talking about how it's a traditional thing. It's like, no, this is just you guys dumping evidence. What the hell?
Yeah, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 14 years, and I don't remember any of the Muslims I went to school with talking about their relatives being buried at sea.
Yeah, I mean, I understand if we had like terrorists coming out of maybe Scandinavia or something like that. But
Yeah.
this is weird.
Yeah, I don't understand that, but and it may be just it may be they legitimately did do it, but they just don't want anybody to examine the bodies or the evidence.
The only thing I can think of, the reason that would be kind of an okay idea to do it would be the fact they don't want the remains to ever be repatriated and the shrine be built
Yes,
to kind
that's
of
part of
honor
it.
them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, quit dumping evidence. This is stupid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I heard another conspiracy theory that he was Mossad, and that's why they got rid of him, because he was a Mossad agent, and people could find through his DNA that he had this life before he was al-Baghdadi as an Israeli Mossad agent, and they were using it to destabilize Syria.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I didn't say it made sense. That's just one of the ones I had read. Yeah, strange.
There's that. That's a little out there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, obviously, I'm sure you've seen all the memes with the dog and Baghdadi, which is hilarious because that's how I guess it went down. They sent the dog in. Baghdadi had some of his kids with him, and he blew himself up seeing the sight of the dog. And of course, Islam and dogs, and it's
yeah. They don't like dogs very well. Yeah,
it's kind of like sending a feral pig after him.
yeah,
That'd have been funnier.
Yeah, it is. It's a very big insult in the Middle East, particularly to call someone a dog.
Dog, donkey, or pig.
Yeah, pig. Yeah, any of those animals they don't like. That's a very bad insult.
They do use donkeys, though, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. Now in Saudi Arabia, not as much because they have a lot of camels, but yeah, more in Levant and stuff. Yeah, they do.
But donkey's still bad.
Yeah, to call a person a donkey is very bad. Dogs are to the point of now I don't know, the culture may have changed a little because I have some Muslim neighbors right down the road who own a dog. But in Saudi Arabia, you would never see a Muslim own a dog.
Yeah.
They own cats. They like cats, but not dogs.
Well, yeah, I think it depends on the area and
It does.
when it comes to Islam.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I have a friend of mine whose wedding I went to. I remember she lived. She was doing when she was working in Taiwan. She lived doing home care for somebody, and I guess they had a dog, and she kind of helped take care of it and petted it a little bit and whatnot. So she was kind of cool with it.
I think it's a Middle Eastern thing, and really it seems more
Saudi Peninsula.
Southern Middle Eastern, because you get up to all the way, excuse me, all the way north into Turkey. You see people have dogs, but yeah, the Arabian Peninsula, it's not considered a good thing.
Yeah. So, who knows?
Yeah, just one of those cultural things.
But yeah, I bring that up because obviously there was one of the dog handlers. He was being interviewed on Fox
Oh,
News,
yes,
which was
yes.
absolutely hilarious. He was talking about, oh yeah, if you like these kind of dogs, you thought it was really cool or whatever. Make sure you get one that's trained. And at the end of it, he's like, and Epstein didn't kill himself.
Fully trained and finished dog from a professional, or just don't get one at all. And Epstein didn't kill himself.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that commentary. All right, Mike.
On national news, which
Yeah.
got a bit of a chuckle out of the interviewer, who kind of quickly cut the interview at that point, which has obviously turned itself into an internet meme. Everybody sharing the fact that Epstein didn't kill himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, paper towel or paper bed sheet is how he allegedly hung himself. the autopsy report is somewhat inconclusive. A lot of the strangulations via, not consistent with, self asphyxiation, or auto asphyxiation, I guess would be a correct term. So I mean, just everything, all the circumstantials not lining up. So I think it was pretty freaking hilarious.
Yeah, that was a pretty good video. And the point at the end of the day is, even if he did kill himself, it doesn't matter. We still need to find out what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. We need to figure out who all else was involved with this. I mean, all the other powerful players that took the Lolita Express to Pedo Island need to be held accountable, and nothing's being done.
Yeah.
There's been no talk about further investigation. It's just, oh, he's dead, so we're dropping it.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
no.
I don't think anything's going to be done.
Well, I think there's enough public interest in it where people are going to probably continue to share the Epstein memes until something is, but that's about all people are going to do is share Epstein memes. It's not like, I'm just going to march on Washington anytime soon.
Well, and also keep in mind, before this guy was actually, captured, he had charges against him before. People knew about this before. I knew about it before. There was internet conspiracy theorists talking about Bill Clinton going to Pedo Island, and now they didn't have any proof at the time, but they ended up being correct. I think it was because he had gotten charged, Epstein had gotten charged with some sort of underage sex or something like this. It was more of a minor charge, but they also knew he had this private island. There was rumors swirling for years, and nobody chose to try to find out when he was before he was captured or when he was alive then. So it makes me believe nobody's going to try to figure it out now.
Well, I know that this is somewhat circumstantial, so I can't put concrete evidence to this, but we all know that the Clinton Foundation was involved in the whole Haiti issue when they had their issues down there. I think it was earthquake or what have you. And they supposedly dumped a lot of money into Haiti, but none of it ever went to where it was supposed to. And apparently there was also a lot of missing young girls from Haiti at the same time, and that kind of coincided around the Pedo Island time. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
So
I don't know, and we'll probably never know, unfortunately. But that's just the kind of stuff that you have to imagine happens all the time with these elites. And not just necessarily the pedophilia, but just any sort of dirty dealings they have are going to get covered up.
Well, I think we'll find out eventually. I think a lot of this stuff will come to light after Bill was dead.
And that tends to happen too. A lot of this stuff does come to light after certain key players pass on and
Can't be held accountable.
Can't be held accountable, right? And that's happened throughout history.
Yeah. So
even back in old medieval times, you find out a lot of stuff about emperors and kings well after they're dead.
yeah. So
Which really doesn't help the world at all because it never helps you to prevent it in the first place.
Nope.
But
So I think that's how that's going to work out. And like with the whole Epstein thing, it's good that people are at least not buying the narrative. I think we started to fully start to see this a little bit with the Vegas shootout issue. People are not buying the Vegas, started not to buy the Vegas narrative. And they're obviously not buying the Epstein narrative, with the exception of like one person I know. I
right.
was telling you about earlier. So, which was pretty funny, but.
Yeah, well, I got to say one person I know too. My father does not believe in conspiracy theories, and I understand his reasoning, though. I got to give him that. I understand that through his way of thinking is how many people can keep a secret that long. And I would say all things being equal, not a lot. But if you're afraid you're going to tell that secret and wind up in a shallow grave, you may be more inclined to keep that secret.
Yeah, that's true. So. Alrighty, well, I guess at this moment we're going to take a quick break. We'll get back to you guys here after the commercial.
Hi, I would like to take a minute to tell you a bit about Hero Song. Hero Song is a 501c3 non-for-profit organization set up to record the music of veterans, active duty, and first responders who also have musical ambitions. Music is great for the soul, and that's what makes us unique and ever so wonderful. Please check them out and consider giving them your support. Again, that's at herosong.org. Thanks.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the content. If you are, make sure to press that like and subscribe button right down there. And if there's any material and stuff you would like to see us cover, we're more than happy to do that for you as well. Hope to have some new content coming out for our Patreon subscribers. Those of you that are, in the mood to do that, we also have one of those. Should be pretty easy to find us, the Donut Hole Show. And, yeah.
And once we get some more subscribers, we'll probably start a merch store, do some mugs, some hats, things like that. We're just now starting out. Hopefully this episode got our audio quality fixed and continue to move forward for you guys and offer more and more every week.
Yep. So thanks again, guys.
Alrighty, we're back from the break. So as we were complaining earlier, actually during the break, we were complaining about how it's sunset tonight is at 4:48, 4:49 tonight.
Yeah, around right now.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
So sun's going down, and it's not even 5 o'clock yet. So this sucks.
Yeah. Since I guess time's just a arbitrary construct, I would say get rid of daylight savings time, but stay on daylight savings time
Yeah,
instead of the other way around.
that would be nice.
In the summertime, do I need it to be light until 9 o'clock? Not really.
No.
But by the same token, in the wintertime, do I want it to get dark at 4:40 something?
No.
Not really. So,
I would rather it be dark at 5:40 as opposed to 4:40.
yeah.
Or later, because it's only getting darker for the next month or so.
Yeah.
Actually, nearly 2 months. I would much rather it gets dark at 5 o'clock as opposed to 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a pain in the butt. The only good benefit is we just did get a night with an extra hour of sleep.
How about we just quit fucking with the clocks
Yeah.
and we just leave it alone and don't fiddle fuck with it?
Yeah, because it's really bad. I hate it in the springtime, especially working in the restaurant industry at nights, and you lose an hour. That's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, losing an hour's sleep sucks. Gaining it's okay, but then you end up with it getting dark.
And in the springtime, the bars have to close an hour early. We were talking about how the bars sometimes open an hour later on this weekend. Well, in the spring, they are legally required because it's at 2 a.m. when it happens.
Yeah.
And last call here where we're at is 3 a.m. So 2 a.m., all of a sudden it's 3 a.m., bars closed.
Yeah, actually, the bar I worked at, they didn't observe it this time, and they also don't observe it in the spring.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's technically breaking the law. I'm not sure anybody's going to do anything about it. But yeah, you're supposed to close down at 3 a.m.
Yeah. So, well, I go till 3:30. I guess they technically go till 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not calling out which bar it is, but yeah, that's what they do during the springtime, which kind of sucks because I kind of look forward to it. It's like, yeah, I get to get out early, but nope.
Yeah, no, but then you do have to show up at work the next day early.
Yeah. So, yeah,
just
screw
pain
you
in the
each
ass.
way.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's us complaining about that. I guess we can go ahead and talk a bit about the fun in California right now with everything burning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more than just the bush.
Yeah. It's a lot of bushes and trees and fields and homes.
And the Reagan Library,
Yes.
nearly.
But yeah, it's it's funny. I saw a meme, and not to make light of any, losses that anybody had or whatnot, but the power company's been doing rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
To quote unquote prevent these fires. Real good job that's been doing. And it said, they live in the most liberal state in the country where they want you to drive electric cars, but then they're going to cut off the power. Like, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So that's always fun. And a lot of it comes down from the environmentalist lobby in California not letting people go in and clear some of the underbrush, which is a notorious problem because the more underbrush, the more of a tinderbox it becomes for these types of problems. Now, forest fires are kind of a natural way of nature just kind of clearing out the crap itself. But when you have homes in and amongst these areas that are prone to, burning like this, it's probably a good idea to clear the underbrush out so it kind of hinders these forest fires to begin with. But the environmentalist lobby in California kind of hinders it a lot.
Yes, whereas, here in Tennessee, I spend a lot of times in state parks and outdoors. Almost every state park now that's very quiet. They don't really tell you about it, and you'll never really see it, but they do allow logging. But what they do is they thin out the forest. They do not clear cut the forest. It's not this type of logging that people think where they just, clear cut a whole entire mountainside, then it causes erosion and whatnot. No, they actually selectively mark the trees, and if you've ever been to a state park out in the middle of nowhere, you'll see sometimes they've got little spray paint marks on them, and they will select the trees, and it has to be approved by the state and the federal government,
Land management and all that.
and they thin it out. and then they allow new trees to grow, and they manage it to a particular rate instead of just letting it go crazy.
Letting it go crazy. And they also pull out a lot of the underbrush and some of the dead wood and stuff like that.
Yes.
Not all of it, and they leave a little bit for, animal habitat. But a lot of the like down trees and stuff that are kind of dried out, they'll pull those as well because that's something that's going to cause problems.
Yeah, and it's a benefit to everybody because what the logging companies have to do is they have to clear that stuff out to get to where they want to go. If they're going to get their equipment in there and their men in there, well, that huge downed oak tree's got to go. So it kind of works out for everybody. The logging companies get to make some profit, and the state parks get to have a lot of that cleared out for them.
Yeah.
But of course, California, they don't allow any of that.
Nope. So fun.
Yeah, it's wildlife management is definitely important when you have human populations that close.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there was no human populations there, sure, fine, let it do whatever it does naturally. But with the power lines and the homes, and obviously them having to do the rolling blackouts, you have to manage what you have.
Yeah. And clearly they're not doing that.
No.
So if only we could all be like California.
Yeah, that's it's the whole, and you see the bumper stickers here, you see them in Texas, is don't California my Tennessee, don't California my Texas.
Yeah.
Because people are fleeing in droves, but then they come to places like Texas or Tennessee, and the reason they come is lower taxes, cheaper real estate.
Better life in general, overall better cost of living.
Yeah. Although that in Nashville, that's starting
To change
not be
because
the case.
we have
But
the assholes moving here. Yeah.
Yeah, they come here, they drive up real estate prices, and part of that's gentrification, but part of it is also these people from those places want to implement the same policies they had
That they just fled from. Yeah.
that they fled from. I don't understand it, but that's what happens.
It's like, oh, this is a great place, except we need this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's kind of why this place is better than where you just came from.
Right. That's like the whole public transit thing in Nashville. The reason we didn't need public transit is because we didn't have that big of a population. Traffic wasn't that bad. It wasn't like this until all of you came here, and now you want to raise my taxes. I've been here 20 years because you all wanted to come here and make the traffic terrible and put up public transit. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, Nashville really doesn't need it, or didn't need it. Now it's a shit show. I just avoid it.
Yeah.
At pretty much all costs.
I mean, I work in Nashville, but other than that, I avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, you mean the exception being if I'm working a Titans game, or like today after the show, I'm going to go to KNS Mart and do my once a month or so, ethnic food shopping.
Right.
And, get fresh produce and good groceries. So I do that like once a month or so, maybe
Yeah.
once every 2 months.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I try to plan all my trips. If I'm going fishing or what have you, I try to go east or west. I do not try to go south through Nashville.
Yeah.
Try to make sure I avoid that at all costs if I can.
Yeah, because it's a shit show.
Yeah.
So, well, we're kind of getting down to pretty much the last of it. Brief mention about the, of course, everything's still a shit show in Hong Kong, with protests and what have you. And now it's to the point where police are even pepper spraying small children. So,
Yeah.
because God forbid you're wearing a face mask in a city that has pollution. Well, we're going to pepper spray you too.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
So, I'll actually probably overlay the video, or cut to it so you guys can see it. So, that's fun. So, if only we had-
And a great idea for anybody for the two of you who happen to be listening. A friend of mine at work said that his buddy, who's a big gamer, gets on a lot of these chat channels, and there'll be a lot of Chinese people on there, and he'll just say freedom for Hong Kong, and then exit out of the channel. It's pretty funny. So he says
Yeah.
he gets a lot of crazy reactions from the Chinese nationals, and they need to hear this stuff more. Obviously the Disney's kowtowing to him, the NBA's kowtowing to him. We already did a show on that, but they need to hear. We're so connected now with the internet and gaming and social media and everything.
Yeah, because a lot of social media is still blocked in China. Your Facebooks, Twitters, YouTubes. Although Twitter seemingly, there's actually a lot of mainlanders on Twitter.
Yeah.
Still using VPNs. But with the gaming,
Yeah, it tends to cross lines.
It crosses lines a lot more. It's a
Yeah.
lot easier to get that. Because here in the West, we're not going to download WeChat for the most part, or we're not going to download QQ. Weirdos like me have it, but
Right.
most people don't. So you're not going to get that social media interaction. But if you're playing, a video game online, whether it's PUBG or something like that, or you're playing even the new Call of Duty Online mobile
Yeah.
crosses over because both of them are actually made by I believe both of them are licensed via Tencent, which is of course a big Chinese company.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes you'll get that kind of stuff. When you
Yeah,
get
and you'll see it a lot. And unfortunately, the gaming companies are trying to kowtow to China, but we as Americans have to be vocal. And Westerners in general, we have to be vocal about, we want our freedom of speech. We don't care if you want us to buy your products, because I understand the market they're going for in China it's a lot more people. But there's still a lot more money to be made per person in the U.S.
West.
and Europe.
yeah.
And us as Western people, we have to say that we don't go for this censorship type stuff, and and we are for freedom. And hopefully the companies will back down.
Yeah. And my biggest problem with Hong Kong is, I mean, if they were trying to do this stuff, 25 years from now, I can't say anything because that was the agreement. But the agreement was China fucks off for 50 years. Well, we're only about 25 years into it, and China's meddling. So that's my problem. That's my only problem with it. I mean, ideally, I would like China to not be a douche to its citizens, and officially Hong Kong citizens are Chinese now. But the deal was, one country, two systems, and they were supposed to have the autonomy and full two systems for 50 years. China's not allowing that to happen. They're meddling. That's my problem.
Yeah.
They're not upholding their end of the bargain. They, Britain and Hong Kong made a deal with the devil, but the devil needs to at least, if you're going to sell your soul, at least the devil needs to at least hold up his end of the bargain on it.
Yeah, and like I said, we can do something about it as Westerners. We can demand that, because a lot of this has to do with economics. And if we punish these companies for kowtowing to those authoritarian type regimes, we can make a difference.
Yeah, it'd be funny. I can just imagine if I were president of the United States, I'd just be like, all right, here's the deal. China, quit fucking with Hong Kong. Oh, you got a problem with it? We are officially cutting trade 110%. No Chinese goods are allowed to be entered in the United States. Eat shit and die. And I would just snip the line, hang up at that point.
Yeah.
And call us when you're done fucking around.
Yeah.
And until the Chinese government releases a statement saying that they would,
Yep. That's another thing. I'm not a big fan of Trump.
No, not either.
he's a little too nice to the Chi-Coms.
Yeah. And I'm not anti-Chinese. I'm actually probably one of the most pro-Chinese people, in the West. I mean, I love the Chinese people. I love, the history, the culture, and everything else. And I was not a big critic of Hu Jintao's regime. I am a big critic of Xi Jinping's regime.
Yeah.
Because Hu Jintao was, he had his issues. I mean, there were human rights violations with Falun Gong and all that in China at the time, still. But he was more of a go along to get along and not fuck with shit too much of a kind of guy, which that was good. The trade relations were good between China and the United States for the most part. Yes, there was an imbalance, but things were generally on a much better footing. There was a little bit of currency manipulation, but it wasn't too egregious. And he wasn't a big hard ass on the people, where the new guy is a dick, and that's where I have a problem.
Yeah. And that's why I think you saw such massive growth in, Chinese-Western relations during that time.
Oh yeah, President Hu was fine. And a lot of Chinese people didn't like Hu because he wasn't as big of a tough guy, so to speak. But I think that was what was great about him, is he wasn't a tough guy. He was willing to play in the international community and negotiate and actually build relations and bring about more real stability in the region by cooperation, as opposed to being a strongman tough guy.
Yeah.
And while some of the Chinese people might like that, a lot more of them, there's also some that don't, because he's not really doing wonders for them.
Right.
I would rather see cooperation and growth and positive outcomes, as opposed to this kind of horse shit.
And if things keep going along this trajectory, because China's at a point where their economy is a lot more inflated than it was 20 years ago, manufacturing is going to be more available in other Southeast Asian countries where the labor is going to be cheaper.
It's already going that way.
And it's already going that way. Well, the Chinese, that puts them in not so great of a position, because if you can just bypass China and go straight to Cambodia to get all your goods,
or Vietnam, or anywhere else. Yeah.
Why do you need these Chinese companies as
don't.
intermediaries?
Yeah, there's actually been a lot of American companies that have pulled out.
Yeah.
And it's only going to continue to be that
And
way.
so with this increasing authoritarianism, American companies, they're going to have to start looking at that. They're like, why are we doing business with China when we could just go straight to Cambodia?
Yeah, and let's look at this from an overall standpoint. This is one of the reasons another reason I'm having a lot of problems, especially with China nowadays. Now, granted, the Great Firewall, for example, has always been a thing, but it was seemingly less, you know, less harsh as it is nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so you go to a place like Vietnam. Vietnam's equally communist, quote unquote, equally authoritarian on the surface, but its citizens have free access to Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, their citizens have free access to YouTube. And Vietnam, they still have, you know, the party line. You're not supposed to, you know, criticize the government too harshly or whatever. Otherwise, they will come and fuck with you. But at the same time, they're not being so overbearing that it's, you know, like it is in China.
Yeah, they're not interfering with the day-to-day affairs of their people.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that the Chinese government can learn from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And Vietnam is actually starting to snag a lot of those jobs.
And I think that's a lesson that the American government may have to learn.
Yeah.
You know, especially with a lot of these Democrat candidates, they want to control every aspect of your life. And as we see with, like you said, just if differing systems of government aside, if the citizens are allowed to run businesses, flourish on their own without too much government interference, we can see it from the example of these places like China. It's going to be far better for the citizens.
And that's when it was ultimately better for the citizens. I mean, China started doing really well under Deng Xiaoping when he's like, okay, yeah, the collective farm thing that we were doing with Mao is not a great idea. Let's try a little free enterprise over here. Ooh, that's working well. Let's try it again over here. Ooh, that's cool too. Let's boom, and then it starts to grow and spread. And you know, while there are still special regions of China that are full on, you know, capitalist havens, a lot more of China has opened up. I mean, you're even seeing it in North Korea, for crying out loud, where you're starting to see, and that was the thing that happened in the 90s, obviously, with the fall of the Soviet Union. North Korea, you know, lost a lot of its money, lost a lot of its influx and aid from the Soviet Union. And still had China kind of throwing some stuff their way, but was not enough to really support everything. So obviously they had a massive recession, large famine, things were pretty crappy. And then people kind of just said, I'm going to grow this little garden here on the side that I'm not legally allowed to do, but I want to eat something other than grass and bark. So they did, and then people started selling a little bit of their produce to their neighbor and stuff, and the government just kind of turned a blind eye to it. Then they officially licensed it and said, okay, you can do this. We're communists, but I guess this is okay. And now it's actually flourished into a full system where it's kind of a day-to-day thing now.
Yeah. And people find these kind of ideas insane, like, well, you're not allowed to grow a garden. Well, guess what? It happens in America every day. Different states and cities have hell, back in the Great Depression, the government said a man was not allowed to grow his own wheat for his personal consumption because it could affect the wheat market.
Yeah, there's a lot of places in America where you can't collect rainwater. That's illegal. It's like, go get fucked.
That's why you can't build a lot of ponds on farms without EPA approval. It's not because of the pond itself. It's because they say, well, that rainwater belongs to the U.S. government, essentially. Because you're not allowed to collect that rainwater because that's a public thing. So, you know, we people say they can't see us getting to that point. Well, we've already had instances of that.
Yeah.
I mean, dating back as far as almost 100 years of affecting the wheat market. And, you know, this is all trying to artificially, change markets. And it just doesn't work. It's never worked. And I hear a lot of people argue on the left for FDR during the Great Depression, but all the evidence suggests that he extended it, not made it better.
With the exception of maybe FDIC, which I think that came about during that time.
Yeah.
The banks, that was okay. That was a program. That was a good idea.
Yeah. The infrastructure building was good because it lasted for generations.
Some of it was good, but some of it was bad too because some of it was just bullshit programs that didn't need to happen at all. Some of it was good though. Like the Hoover Dam was probably all right.
Yeah.
Some of the interstate programs, but we really didn't kick that off until Eisenhower anyway.
Yeah. But trying to manipulate markets, it's never been a good idea.
No.
It doesn't work. Central control of markets never works.
No. Because you just cannot fully predict what's necessary.
Well, it's the collective knowledge of the consumer base. You can't quantify it because that's a collective knowledge of millions of people. So to say that you can put a bureau that can replicate the collective knowledge of millions and billions of people worldwide and artificially control the economy is nonsense. Only the consumer knows what they need in their own home. You can't. Well, you'd have to have a government inspector for every block to go and say, okay, what do you guys need, and then let's go compile the numbers. And it's just not feasible.
Yeah.
You know?
And even then, you're only going to get a guesstimate anyway. It's going
Yeah.
to be kind of close, but not perfect.
Right.
And then you'll run into shortages because you don't want to overproduce and have waste.
Right.
So you're either going to have a little bit of waste, or you're going to have, shortages. It's going to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And usually it's going to be shortages, especially when it's government mandated.
Well, and the great thing about the free market is when you have waste, they will find a way to use that because they still want to make money off of it, even if they lose money. Say, we say some new technology is invented where gas cars are no longer needed. Well, there'll still be a market for gas cars. They'll just be 10 times cheaper.
They'll be 10 times cheaper, or it'll be a special niche market.
Right,
It'll be
right.
something.
They'll still get used somehow.
Yeah.
It may not be to their original purpose. It may not be, it may lose money instead of make money, but it's not just waste thrown in a landfill. It's still going to be used somehow.
And you'll probably see as gas cars retrofitted to whatever the new technology is, or gas cars would become a hobbyist thing that's only done on like the racetrack or something like
Yeah.
that. Like there would still be something with it.
Right, right. And that's why in the free market, the conspiracy theorist, I don't buy into it like with alternative energy. If alternative energy was cheaper and better and unlimited,
We'd be using it already.
we'd be using it because the free market would demand it. So that's, and I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding with a lot of leftists, that they don't understand how it works. That if something is better and cheaper, we're all going to use it.
The only
There's no
exception to that would
question.
be if there was a method that was better and cheaper, and there was a patent on it, and the industries, as it were to snag it and say, "Oh, we're just going to hold on to this for later."
Yeah,
That I can see.
Yeah.
But beyond that, no.
yeah, that's like market manipulation, like diamond markets. do.
Yeah, exactly. Where they have more diamonds than they do fucking,
But that does not apply to quote unquote sustainable energy. I mean, anybody can go out and buy solar panels. I often hear people talk about how we don't utilize it. Well, you have these people own homes. You have a roof.
That said-
go spend $30,000 on solar panels if you
That
want
said,
to.
there are some places where having solar panels on your roof would be illegal,
Yeah,
which is fucked up.
yeah, but that's not the case here. But the basic point is if it were that useful, people would be going and spending $30,000 and $40,000.
And some people do, because for some people it works. It's like the idea of using geothermal heating for heating and cooling. Some places and in some instances, it's a great idea.
which is actually far more common here, believe it or not, than solar panels are.
Yeah.
Geothermal is.
Because we have a better area for that. Solar panels are really good in Florida for the most part, and they're good in Arizona, New Mexico. You get a lot of sun there. It's a good idea because the cost benefit ratio on it works out. But solar panels in Alaska, kind of a shitty idea.
Yeah.
It's not going to work so well.
Yeah, geothermal in Alaska because the ground's always cold.
Yeah.
Here we actually have a temperate. Our ground temperature is 50-something degrees constantly. So when it's 30 outside, you're getting warmer. When it's 80 outside, you're getting cooler.
Well, if you do
So it works.
geothermal would probably work well in Alaska too, if you dug down deep enough.
Yeah.
Once you got past that permafrost, you'd be at the 52-degree mark as well. So
Yeah, but then you run into cost issues and how deep do you have to drill.
yeah, in
and,
some places in Alaska, you can't get through the permafrost
you can't. Yeah.
unless you bust out the dynamite.
And there's other places in Alaska. There was a place I was looking at. It seemed pretty cool. It was like the Pacific Northwest. Never got that cold. Didn't even get as cold as Tennessee. Rarely froze because of just where it was near the ocean, and it had a little microclimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, so that's cool. So kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. At the
Yeah,
end.
we did.
That's good because we didn't have much material.
Yeah, but we did a good hour and a half. And
Yeah. So, anyway, guys, thanks for joining us today. Again, all two of you that are watching, or three, or one, or none, be sure to say something in the comments. Say, hey, I saw it, or you guys suck, or something.
something, and
Because we're starting to think that we're just, sending out a message and nobody's receiving it. So,
get your friends to watch,
Yeah.
your dog, your cat.
something.
We'll take anything.
And if there's something you want to hear us talk about, we'd be happy to do that. Or if you're in the Nashville area and want to be on the show, we could probably see making that happen too for you. Again, you guys have yourselves a good one, and we'll catch you again next time.
Have a good one.
Bye.